Okay, Aaron, I think I'm streaming to YouTube. Scott, ready when you are. If you want to kick things off, we want to remind everybody when you communicate with us, the best way to do that is using the Q&A. Please, when you put stuff into the Q&A, make sure it's a complete question. The best thing to do actually is rather than putting your own question in, look and see if somebody else has already asked something very similar. And if they have, upvote that, because typically on these events we get in excess of 100 questions. And so we never get a chance to answer them all. But if you see a question that's close to yours, upvote it, it will float to the top and it's more likely to get an answer. Other than that, use the chat if you need to contact me. If I see a raised hand, I'll reach out in chat to find out check and see if you need me for that. So other than that, Scott, go ahead.
Awesome. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Rogowski, and we're excited to be here Monday morning on April 27th. This is our tri-weekly calls that we have, and we have some good information for you today. Not a whole lot of new stuff today. We're excited that we have Noah Broad on the call from SBA. So thank you, Noah, for joining us. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions that we're just going to pawn off to you. And then we're going to go through a little bit of information, and then we will get into the Q&A with Ann Johnson Strongberg from NorCal SBDC. She's going to jump into that. She's the Associate Director of our region around programs. So we're Northern California SBDC, Small Business Development Centers. We're supported by the SBA, Small Business Administration, so we're federally funded. We're also state funded by the State of California, Governor's Office of Economic Development. Because we're state and federally funded, we come to you at no cost. We can work with you and work with other businesses at no cost for you. I'm from Northern California SBDC Network. I'm the director of the Finance Center, NorCal SBDC Finance Center. And Sunita Maharaj, she's my associate director. She's also on the call as one of the panelists. And we specialize in helping businesses get capital and helping them navigate the loan process. And today we're helping to navigate all the disaster loan process. So a disclaimer, so things are changing all the time. The information was correct when we put this together, but as you know, things are changing all the time. So we want to let you know to not discourage yourself, or don't hesitate to apply for either the EIDL, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, or the PPP, which is the Paycheck Protection Program, when it comes available again. So the PPP is supposed to launch this morning. It's right around the time that we're talking right now. And Noah will hopefully have an update as to when the EIDL relaunches today or this week sometime. Or no, he's shaking his head. Lucky for us. Okay, so we're going to get into that a little bit later. So if you have some investors that are part of your company, we work with a lot of tech companies in the Bay Area. If you have investors or partners, we recommend that you reach out to them before you apply for any of this debt. They may or may not want you to take advantage of it. It may not make sense for you. Also, we do not have access to check on the status of your submitted SBA EIDL loan. Please be patient. SBA states that if you are in the queue, you are going to be, if you applied after March 29th and you're still in the queue, you are going to be, your loan is going to be processed. You just need to kind of be patient. And then also, if you applied for the PPP and you're waiting on your bank, you need to find out if you have an SBA loan number from E-Tran, which is an internal platform that SBA uses. So if you're in the queue for a bank, you may just be in the application queue, you may not be in the loan number queue. And you need to find out if there's a loan number assigned to you from SBA. If there is not, then you need to potentially call that bank and find out how to get one, or potentially withdraw and then go find another lender that will get you a loan number quicker. So today's new funding, this is what we talked about last week on Friday. It hasn't changed much to my knowledge, but it's $320 billion for the PPP. 260 of that is open to all businesses. $60 billion of that is going to either community-based lenders or banks, credit unions, or possibly mid-sized banks and credit unions. So that's money coming from the feds directly to these lenders so that they can lend. If they're not as capitalized as other big banks, they can lend this money for triple P money, triple P loans. The EIDL loan is receiving $60 billion. That's $50 billion for loan reserves in case there's some losses that they take, and then $10 billion for the advance, which is the forgivability part of the EIDL. Is that advance that you get? It's $1,000 per employee, up to 10 employees. So the loan overview. So we're not going to go into as much information as we normally do, but these are the loan overviews. There's the PPP, the EIDL, the SBA loan support. If you get any new loan today, SBA will pay the principal and interest. And for these types of loan programs, 7A, 504 microloans for the first 6 months, they'll pay your payments. In the state of California, there's some sales tax deferment that you can take advantage of. There's also iBank loans in the state of California. So the forms needed for the triple P, there's a universal form that's from the Treasury Office, which we can give you access to. We can help you fill it out at no cost. Sole proprietors need to gather all their 1099s that they have. A sole proprietor is somebody that's self-employed, has a Schedule C, or is considered as a sole proprietor. All other entities need to turn in their 2019 W-2s, 941s, and or 940s, depending on what you file for your quarterly payroll reports. Sole proprietors, their calculation for their forgivability and their loan amount is very different from any other entity. You need to look on your Schedule C, line 31, which is your profit or loss line. If you have a profit, then you qualify for the triple P. If you don't have a profit in 2019, it's not really hard coded that it says you're going to get declined, but if you take a negative number and divide it by other numbers, it's still going to be negative. So it's going to be, you're not going to show what the triple P lenders want you to show to approve you for a loan. So the loan amount for the triple P for a sole prop is you take line 31 divided by 12 and times it by 2.5. That's 2.5 months. The forgivability part is you take a line 31, you divide it by 52 weeks, and you multiply that by 8, because the first 8 weeks are forgivable, potentially forgivable for the triple P. So if you're having trouble finding a triple P lender, kind of talked about this a little bit at the beginning. If you're in the queue, but you don't have a loan number because you're at a big bank and you are 100,001 in the queue, they're probably not going to get to you for a loan number. If you were trying to find other lenders that will take non-customers, or just other lenders if you have not applied because you were cautious in applying for the first round, but you want to apply for the second round, you can go to sba.gov/paycheck protection/find, type in your zip code, and you can find a lender near you. You can also go to some of these other ones that we mentioned here. This list becomes shorter and shorter every day because banks that say, hey, we want to take non-customers, and everybody starts sending non-customers to them, they get overloaded and they can't handle the capacity. So then they come back to us and say, hey, take us off that list. So Lendistry.com is still offering non-customers up to $250,000 for the triple P. That's the max that they can do for triple P. FundingCircle.com is a great platform. United Business Bank, Radius Bank, T-Bank stands for Texas Bank. They're not here in California, but they lend nationally, so you don't need to bank with them, but they can help you with a triple P loan. So the EIDL loan, economic injury disaster loan, after you apply, these are some of the forms that you may need to fill out to complete your application so that SBA can tell you how much you qualify for or you're approved for. And some of these forms may be a little bit overload and you may not need them, but at SBDC, we have access to these hard copy forms, and we could help you fill them out at no cost and help you get ready so that when SBA comes back to you and says, hey, we need help with these forms, then you'll be ready. So the state of California, disaster loan options. If you are disqualified or not eligible for a triple P or an EIDL, Disqualification can mean that you were declined due to some reason, or you just don't even qualify because you don't have a US ID. So if you don't have a US ID, you don't qualify for EIDL or Triple P. So you know you're disqualified. If you're a 501c6, you know you're disqualified from Triple P and EIDL. You don't need to apply, but you are disqualified. If you don't have payroll, then or your 2019 Schedule C is negative, then you technically don't qualify for the Triple P on a sole prop. And then if you're delinquent on any federal loan liens or loans that have liens like student loans or other SBA loans, then you do not qualify for the Triple P or the EIDL loan. But you could potentially qualify for the state guarantee loan. If you're a 501c6, you can qualify for the state guarantee loan, which is those two loans on the top. You can qualify for up to $50,000 microloan fund. If you have questions, you can go to ibank.ca.gov and find out more about that. Or you can qualify for up to $1 million through financial development corporations. We have two in Northern California. We have one in Sacramento. We have one in Oakland. If you're Solano South, you can email a gentleman by the name of Chris Horton. He does some work for the NorCal FDC in Oakland. YOLO North, you can email us at loans@asksbdc.com and we will get you to the right lender. Again, these loans are from lenders. They're not from SBA. They're from lenders and they're backed by the state iBank. They're backed by iBank, which is the state of California. The Triple P loans are money from lenders that are backed by SBA. And the EIDL loan is money directly from SBA. All right, so then, as I mentioned, this is it's a much shorter presentation than we normally give. There hasn't been a lot of updates. The loans are the way they are, and hopefully we'll get some update from NOAA, or maybe just a little gleam of light from NOAA. We are going to go to Q&A because that's what we're here for, and Anne is going to help us navigate that. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott. Good morning, everybody. We're going to do some questions as Alan has already pointed out. If you want to upvote other people's questions, that's an easier way to get questions answered, as we're not going to be able to get through all of them. Let's start with one from Karen. I applied for EIDL on March 30th. Still have not heard from SBA. What can I do?
I mean, I can take that as you know, as I should for the Largo local district office. So a lot of business owners are in that stage of waiting for the EIDL, and unfortunately, there's not a better answer to that question than to, well, there's a few elements to answer. One is if you've submitted your application and you had that confirmation number, then that means you're in the queue. And then the other is you can call the 1-800 number, and sometimes they're able to pull up your application and see where it is in that queue. The third thing I'd say is if you do have a credit freeze or a block on your existing credit, SBA will do a credit pull before we deposit an advance, and we'll do another one before when we're in the loan processing stage. So that's one way that you can prepare as well. For the EIDL, for the advance portion, that will often get deposited directly into a business owner's bank account without notification. It's a good sign. It means you're moved on to the next stage for the loan evaluation. But you probably won't get communication for the advance. And when you will get communication is when a determination is made on the loan itself. So the processing is, you see the deposit from the advance, and then you wait a little bit, and then you see a determination from the loan officer. So that's at least what the steps look like. I can't give you a firm timeline on what an application looks like or what that waiting period is just yet. I will say that if you apply before March 30th, when the applications reopen, you should put in a second application. Just if you applied under the old application system, it doesn't affect where your application is in terms of its order of being processed in terms of the date. But it does, if you put in an application through the new system, that's going to enable a lot of automation and likely speed up the timeline overall.
Okay. Noah, what can you tell us about what's happening with IDLE? In general, what do you know? What's delaying the reopening of the IDLE portal?
Well, for the IDLE portal, I don't have an answer on that in terms of why that hasn't reopened. I will say that I know that an enormous number of applications were taken under the first phase of funding, and that likely they want to make sure that before they open up for a next phase of applicants that they're looking at the existing applications in the pipeline, and that those are being processed in a really expeditious manner. And I do know that application decisions for IDLE have really taken an uptick over the past few weeks. It opened back in the middle of March, and then there wasn't a lot of reporting, but I've been, both from conversations with business owners as well as internal reports, we're seeing lots of decisions being made on those applications very quickly now. And some of that had to do with standing up infrastructure in order to meet the demand for that program.
So Noah, are you saying that there's a possibility that IDLE won't reopen if they figure out that they've got enough in the queue to use up the existing funds?
I'm saying I don't know.
Okay.
I guess it's, I just want to be really clear that I don't have a timeline for when it will reopen or the conditions under that.
Okay. All right. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you that question at least.
That's a good question.
All right. Let's see. I think that you had marked a question that you wanted to be able to answer, Sunita. Did you recall doing that?
I think I was going to answer the question. What the person was asking, if this is a good webinar for them to be on, and it is, because it's going to go over all business types, so 1099 and other entities. So yes, I wanted to tell them to hang on.
Okay, great. Let's see. I've got more people asking about just reiterating the forgiveness aspect of the PPP loan. Can you show that slide again, Scott?
Yeah, so we don't have a slide on any other entity besides a sole proprietor. This is something that I definitely could have put in the slides this morning. The triple P, the day you get funded, and 8 weeks out from the day you get funded is the forgivability portion or timeline of what could be potentially forgiven. If you're a sole prop, to calculate the forgivability part, you take line 31 divided by 52 weeks times 8. That's the forgivability part. For any other entity, the forgivability part is also 8 weeks, but it's 8 weeks of payroll costs. And as a sole prop, you don't have payroll costs per se. Usually you don't. It's for payroll costs, including medical benefits, sick paid leave. It also includes workman's comp. Doesn't include payroll taxes, but it includes employee compensations, all that great stuff. It includes part-time and full-time, but it does not include 1099s. If you are an employer and you have 1099s plus employees, your 1099s get to apply all by themselves, which is what's shown on this slide. So you can't count them and they can't double dip. The forgivability part for any other entity, including a sole proprietor, is the first 8 weeks from the time that you get funded. You do need to hire your employees back at the same status, part-time or full-time. You need to hire them back. You don't need to hire everyone back. And as long as you spend 75% or more of your money in the first 8 weeks on payroll and all those other costs associated that I mentioned, then it's more likely going to be forgivable. We're not the lender and we're not SBA, so we can't tell you 100% that it will be forgivable. But from what we know, it will be forgivable if 75% or more is spent on the payroll costs. If 25% or less is spent on rent, utilities, or interest payments, then it will potentially be forgivable. Again, we're not the beholder of that decision. Your bank is. Your bank will go. You need to talk to your bank. And I want to tell you this. I've had business owners call me and say, well, my bank's not telling me anything. And there's a reason why. The PPP loans didn't get started. They didn't get funded until the 17th. They started getting funded the 16th, 15th to the 17th that week. And the last week they were funded more. And then now there's a new tranche. They'll be funded this week and next week. But we don't know what that's going to look like 8 weeks from now. We don't know what the forgivability part is going to be or not going to be. But we just know we're telling you what we read in the law is that 75% or more of the money in the first 8 weeks, if it's spent on payroll costs, it should be forgiven. And if 25% or less is spent on rent, utilities, and interest debt payments, it should also be forgiven. You can spend 100% on payroll costs and don't spend anything on rent, utilities, and interest. If you get the EIDL loan and the PPP, you can use the EIDL loan for all the other stuff and use the PPP for only payroll, because you can get both. You just can't use them for the same purpose.
Okay, and then independent contractors do not count towards the 75% payroll threshold, correct?
That is true. Only people that are full-time or part-time.
So Bart is asking if the EIDL advance is still available. There are a lot of people who are still getting EIDL advances, Bart, from what we understand from our clients and from people who are still in the queue, but reapplying is not available currently.
Yeah.
Anything else to say on that, Scott?
No, the feds did, part of the 380 billion is there's 10 billion that's set aside only for the EIDL advance, meaning that once it does open again and you have not already applied for the EIDL advance, you can apply for the EIDL advance up to $10,000 if you have 10 or more employees. If you're a sole prop, it's just you, it's 1,000. If it's you and a spouse, it would be 2,000. But that's how the EIDL advance works. 10 billion is a lot of money. The first tranche of the EIDL advance was roughly about 3 billion. So now they tripled it, or more than tripled it. It's 10 billion. So it's a good amount of money for this advance.
Okay. Can insurance be paid with the non-payroll 25% of the PPP loan?
No, only, so workman's comp insurance can be paid in the payroll cost of 75. No liability insurance, general liability, no building insurance. And on the other side of the 25, it's only rent or mortgage payment, your utilities, which is not insurance, and your interest debt payments.
Okay. Let's see. Paul is saying, I applied for and received funding for PPP loan earlier this month. The application did not allow federal tax or workers' compensation to be used on the application. It did not allow for my sole proprietor income in Schedule C line 30 to be used on the application. So while I received funding, it was very short of guidelines. Can I apply for additional funding? My bank is unavailable for comment.
So it's, yeah, go ahead. It's very important before you get funded, before you go in and sign your paperwork, before you take that money, it's really important for you to ask these questions before you take it. If you take it, then you have to spend it appropriately for it to be forgiven, or you can just give it back, I guess. There's no prepayment penalty. You can't necessarily ask for more. I mean, you can, but they're not going to give you more. I mean, they may. I doubt it though, like, because it's like a one-time loan. I mean, I'm not sure, Noah. I know the idle sometimes are doing like they'll give you 20 today and then maybe 50 later. Like they're doing kind of those staggering.
There's more flexibility with the idle.
Triple P is not doing that, right?
With the PPP, you can, PPP, it must be dispersed in full. Generally speaking, you can't modify a loan once it's been submitted and approved. And the only way to do a modification really is to cancel that approval and then resubmit the approval, from scratch. And which, maybe puts you in a different place in a queue. And you can only receive one PPP loan as a business owner as well. So you can't go back and get a second one now that you've already taken funds.
Okay. Attila is asking what documentation will be acceptable for loan forgiveness for all sole prop self-employed filing the Schedule C. That's something that only their lender can answer, correct?
Yeah, but I mean, as a business owner, it's really up to you to track your spending habits and to document it. Sunita might be able to go into more detail about that, but like you just have to really track that stuff. And then when you submit it at the end of 8 weeks, or maybe you can go do it, get a pulse at 6 weeks to see how you are tracking that. But a lot of it is going to have to do with you as an individual business owner because you're the one spending the money.
That's correct. Everything that I read, the onus is on the business, not so much the lender. The lender can direct you, but as the business, keeping track of the funds and where it's going is on you. I would keep maybe separate account, or definitely an Excel sheet, or write everything down exactly where all that money is going and show it from your bank account, highlight it, do everything that you can during that 8 weeks to make it easier for you, because once those 8 weeks are up and you have to provide it to the bank, you want to make sure that you're ready and then also first in line for the forgiveness.
Nadira is saying in regards to the PPP, her lender says that they have an SBA number. Does that mean funding has been allocated, or might I still be at risk for missing out again?
For the PPP, if you've been assigned a loan number from SBA, that means that there's funding allocated for that loan. There is always, until it's dispersed, until it's fully executed and dispersed, that loan could be canceled at the discretion of the bank, or it could be canceled by SBA. But that means that if you have a loan number, it means you have a budgeted amount within the appropriations that Congress has made to the program for that loan. Until it's fully dispersed in your bank account, I'd say that the lender and SBA still have the authority to make changes to it, but it's unlikely that would happen.
So Koji is asking for PPP forgiveness. Is there any chance that SBA would consider restarting the 8-week time clock? They want to be able to reopen their business. The shelter in place is preventing that. Most of the employees receive higher unemployment insurance benefits and rejected coming back to receive the wage. What can be done in that situation?
Nothing. I don't think so. I think the way it's written is the law, so can't just change it because you weren't ready to reopen, or the world hasn't reopened, or unfortunately, and we have no control over this, and neither does SBA or the lender. Really, it's the government. So unfortunately, if you are not open, which most people aren't, and you're a restaurant and you're not going to open, you have to, unfortunately, on the day that you get your money, hire as many people back as you can and pay them to sit at home. Until you can reopen, or partially reopen. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. If you want it forgivable, then you need to, once you get the money, hire them back and pay them to sit at home. If you don't care about it being forgivable, then let it float a little while. If you want to give it back, then give it back. But unfortunately, we can't rewrite the law.
And you may want to get something in writing from them stating that they do not want to come back, so that you have documentation from your lender. We don't know what's going to happen in the next several weeks. I believe this is an issue that a lot of businesses are having, and hopefully, this is something that has been being told to the government entities that govern all of this. So hopefully they may put something in place. I don't know, but getting the documentation from your employees stating that they do not want to come back due to them making more money on unemployment. And hopefully they can send you an email, maybe a text might suffice. Take a copy of that if it's them, just something that you have documentation showing that.
And as I understand it, there are implications for them if they refuse to be rehired because they're getting more on their unemployment. Isn't that correct?
So we're not attorneys, but from the attorneys that we talk to and through EDD, yes, it is correct that if you fail to take an offer to come back to work, then yes, you are in a potential, there's a potential that you could stop receiving your unemployment. Yes. You're in jeopardy. You're putting it in jeopardy. Yes.
Okay. Does anybody, there's a lot of questions about the pandemic unemployment assistance. That's not our area of expertise, but there is several questions regarding, is there a PPP loan conflict in the ability to apply for those funds? Has anybody heard whether that's the case or not?
No, no, we haven't. There's a call that is happening every Thursday with some really high, powerful attorneys that we were on last week that we're supposed to promote on this call, but I forgot. So I will send that to Alan and send it out. And they know all the questions around the PUA that we don't know because we're not labor law experts. But they said on the call last week from some attorneys, just apply for everything. Apply for triple P, apply for EIDL, and apply for unemployment as a 1099 contractor. That's not something I would normally tell you, but that's what those attorneys said. And because you will find out what you're approved for, what you're not approved for. And we haven't heard anything that says you can't apply for unemployment as a 1099 and apply for the triple P loan.
Okay. Megan is saying that she's applied for the PPP, received the DocuSign document from the bank saying to sign, and that they would be sending that document to SBA. Number one, what does this mean? And number two, when will approvals be going out for the second round of funding?
So it depends on your lender, I guess, is what I would say, because you probably signed a DocuSign, with the lender, and then the lender will turn around and submit an approval to SBA. And as of this morning, we've had lenders submitting to SBA because PPP application approvals are being accepted again. That's kind of dependent on how quickly your bank is uploading those approvals into our system, and also how well your bank is communicating with you as well about the status of the loans.
Lynn is asking, is it too late to apply for the EIDL or the PPL? I'm assuming you mean the PPP. Currently, it's too late to apply for the EIDL for now, but we're hopeful that that application portal will reopen, and the PPP is now accepting applications again through SBA. So you would be going to one of the lenders that are accepting PPP applications. We put a list of them in our slides, and are happy to have you see that by clicking on the slides that are in the chat window. There's a link to download them directly.
And
Yeah.
I just wanted to let everybody know that on our website, asksbdc.com, that if you go to latest information, we do have information in regards to grants and all the specifics there. So these are newer, one went live today. Please look on our website for the latest information on grants and see if you are one of the qualified companies to apply. So it is asksbdc.com. It is right here on the screen. You can go there and it is under latest information.
Thank you. Alexandria is asking, can you please share basic first steps to apply for a small business loan for a self-employed entrepreneur? Alex, I'm going to recommend that you go to the local SBDC. If you go to norcalsbdc.org, they will help you in starting this process. If you type in your zip code, and it'll direct you to the nearest SBDC office to you, and they can help you with some of those step-by-step things that you might need in addition to the information that we've shared here. I also do recommend that you go to asksbdc.com and check out the resources that we have on that site. Lauren is saying that they had applied for the EIDL March 31st, finally received a $10,000 advance this morning. So congratulations.
Yeah,
That's
congratulations.
fantastic. I'd like to hear those items. Colby is asking, what's the interest on the California State Disaster Loan?
So the interest depends on the guarantee amount, but the lowest rate you can get is 4.25, which is prime plus 1. The highest rate you may see is prime plus 2, which is 5.25. Most of the lenders that we have talked to is prime plus 1 at 4.25. That's for the $1 million loan. The $50,000 loan, we don't know the rate because it's dependent on the lender, the micro lender. So these are funds that are coming from the governor's office of economic development called GoBiz with iBank. And they're taking it from that fund and they're giving it to CDFIs or nonprofit lenders. CDFI is a certified development financial institution. We don't know which ones. And those lenders get to determine how much they want to charge you as an interest rate. We've heard as low as 4.5. We heard as high as 10%. So we don't know.
Jackie is asking, if I have no employees, would any of the loan be forgivable? I'm assuming that we're talking about the PPP.
If they have no employees, will it be forgivable?
Will any of the loan be forgivable?
Yeah, potentially 25% or less would be forgivable based on if they spent it on rent, utilities, and interest payments.
Great.
If they're a sole proprietor though, and they have
Right.
0 employees, they have 8 weeks of what their
Their net profit is, yeah.
Their net income, right. So they you would go to the slide and it would tell you exactly how to calculate what your 8 weeks would be. And then the rest of it could be used towards the approved other debt.
Okay. Joyce has a question, I think for SBA. She's saying SBA. And Joyce, if you don't get the answer here, you can also go to your local SBDC. We might be able to help you through. It's harder with these scenario questions, but I'm a sole proprietor and my PPP lender is asking for business income reported on Schedule C. I have for 20 years and my CPA validates that my short-term lodging rental income is reported on Schedule E. It is my main source of income, gross in the 3 figures, and has been such for 30 years and is profitable. One lender says I will be declined because it's not on the Schedule C.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Most most real estate properties are on your Schedule E. It would be very rare that it would transfer over to your Schedule C. It usually transfers over to your first page of your 1040. But Sunita, have you seen where they could transfer a Schedule E to a C, like the income, or not? Is not how it works.
No, that's not how it works for that. So
then, yeah, that one's yeah. What would you recommend on that one? Just that.
we would need to see the complete taxes to see exactly where all the money's flowing and if there is a Schedule C or anything else, because then they might just be a everything's under E. I haven't seen any law using that schedule to calculate income. And I
Okay.
see Noah shaking his head no, like he hasn't either.
Yeah, I haven't seen
Maybe
anything.
it may be an idle loan rather than the PPP loan.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, because there's no. Yeah.
There are a bunch of questions in here about people who applied various dates for their EIDL and they haven't heard anything yet. We don't have any additional instruction for you other than you're welcome to try the 800 number for SBA and see if they can check on them for you. I would continue to be looking in your bank account to find out whether or not there has been an advance deposit, because then at least that would be a precursor to potential funding. But our best advice is to be patient. And as people are reporting in here, and as our clients are reporting, they are making their way through those lists. We talked about potential of unemployment. If an employee does not return to work, do we need to notify the EDD if they're choosing unemployment versus returning to work?
I don't know. That's a great question. I mean,
That's a business decision for them. I mean, if I were the business owner.
hey, be careful what you say, real quick.
Yeah. You know, it is
it's-
a business decision of your own, and maybe something they want to contact EDD to find out what they're supposed to do, because an EDD can tell you the correct thing. Since we don't know for sure, definitely reach out to EDD to answer that question for you.
If I was a business owner, I'd probably say same thing that Sunita was going to say, because you know this is all like
I didn't say.
it's like the federal government stuff. Like you're not supposed to mess with the Fed, so like they're going to find out as an employee if you failed to take an offer. There's ways to find out. So we were told 2 weeks ago that there's ways they can track this stuff, and they'll find out regardless if you say something.
Okay. We've got questions, people asking about how the Federal Family Leave Act might affect PPP. Because there are people who are parents that are not able to go back to work because of the Federal Family Leave Act.
Mm-hmm. So with provisions of the Federal Family Leave Act, as well as the basically the paid sick leave provisions for individuals who may have contracted coronavirus, is that so there's dedicated funding for those programs, and if you're receiving funding from either of those new leave programs that have been signed into Congress, that those like PPP funds shouldn't be used to compensate people for, you know, maybe it could be used to make up any difference from those programs, but this is, you know, there's an overarching principle with all federal funds, which is that they have to be non-duplicative. So you can't have, you know, $2 from the federal government going to the same thing. And if employees are receiving pay because of the Leave Act from that dedicated source of funding, then the PPP funds should go towards other employees who aren't receiving those benefits, or if the dedicated pool of funding is maybe, I think it's 2/3 of pay that's in that act, then the PPP funding could be used for that extra 1/3, maybe that is not being covered by the Leave Act. So that's where I'd see that they interact. But so yeah, I don't know if anybody else has anything else to add on to that.
Okay. Jackie's asking, is it true with the idle advance you only get 1,000 per employee, and then it doesn't have to be paid back? Yes, that is true. I'm a salon owner, and including myself, there are 11 of us. I do not pay them. They're self-employed and pay me to rent their space. I listed no employees. Even though I listed no employees, I'm unable to pay myself. Will I qualify for $1,000 for myself? Yes?
Yes. Yes, you should qualify for one person, which is you.
Okay. Christina is asking for some clarification. Is the forgiveness of the PPP based on the number of employees or the payroll amount?
The payroll amount, payroll costs, which is everything we went over, but it's not number of employees.
Okay. Jackie is saying, I haven't been able to get my taxes done for 2019. Does that mean I cannot qualify for the PPP? My tax preparer has taken a month off.
That's really cool if your tax preparer take a month off. But yeah, you can contact your local SBDC. You can email us right here. We can help you craft your P&L, profit and loss. We can't actually help you craft a draft tax, but we could help you get almost there to show the historicals so that you are prepared when you go to your lender. And they'll understand, since taxes aren't due until July 15th this year, since they extended it. So they'll understand, but yeah, work with us. We can help you craft your P&L, whether you have QuickBooks or you don't have QuickBooks. Obviously, it's a lot easier if you have QuickBooks, but if you don't have it, we can really help you there at no cost.
Angela is saying, will the PPP be auditing the type of wages paid to employees for the forgiveness portion? What about bonuses and or one-time compensation for working from home?
It should be typical of what it was the last quarter is how the income should be shown. If they commonly get commissions, if they commonly did receive bonuses, then that's what they're looking at. So for forgiveness, unless it's changed, Noah, has it become a little bit more lenient?
No, that sounds accurate. And I mean, and the way that, you know, the way that the structure of this program is as well, is that SBA, we wouldn't necessarily go straight to the borrower. What we would do is we would audit a lender, and we would ask that lender, okay, where's the documentation for forgiveness? And if that lender was not you know, up to snuff in terms of their documentation, we would invalidate their guarantee, have them pay back the forgiveness. Basically, it would be, well, actually, some of the way the provisions of these are put the risk on the borrower as well. But I mean, it would start with the lender at least. SBA wouldn't start directly with the borrower. We'd start with the lender, then it would go over to the borrower.
Okay. Scott, there's a question here I'd like you to answer if you can. Debbie's saying, I received an invite with Funding Circle, who sent me to another lender. Is that okay?
It is okay. Just gotta be really careful with the Funding Circle. They're a broker platform, so they work with other lenders. From my understanding is they're not able to charge you to help you find a lender. They get paid from the lenders on the back end. But yes, they are not a direct lender. They have, I don't know how many lenders, maybe 100 lenders on their platform. You apply, they run your credit, and then they see which one would best be suited for you. So yes, if they referred you to another lender, that is a common practice. That lender probably does direct PPP loans. And then if you have questions and you're not sure if that lender is valid or a legitimate lender, you can go ahead and email us and let us know. We'll respond with the knowledge that we have.
Okay. Joel has a very interesting question. What happens if I do not use 75% of the PPP loan for payroll? If I do not have work to do to justify hiring employees and they're making more on unemployment than I were to give them to just start, or than I would be normally paying them, I could use the loan to cover rent and healthcare, but will I get a giant penalty if I take the loan and don't use it for payroll?
No, you have to pay it back though. So it'll turn into a loan with a 1% annual interest rate. And then additionally, we don't have it hasn't been released yet, but has been clarified that if say you're only able to make 20% of those loan proceeds are able to be used towards payroll expenses, then forgiveness will be granted proportional to the expenses that you've made. So you might still get partial forgiveness. It'll just be a reduced amount. The exact way that proportionality is calculated hasn't yet been released by the Treasury.
Okay.
And that would turn into a 1% loan for 2 years, whatever's not forgiven.
Yes.
So it's not in your best interest to not use it for payroll, because it's, depending on how much it is, a loan that has to be paid back in 2 years. If you do the math, it's a lot of money per month. It's a big loan to pay back, regardless if it's 25,000 or 2 million. It's a lot of money. So it doesn't behoove you to not use it for mostly payroll. But if you have a more specific question, just email or call us on that.
Charles is saying, is it true that Nebraska and states where they didn't close shop are getting a lot of the PPP funds while California and New York are receiving less? Noah?
So we released reporting on the first tranche of funding last week, and there were differences between states, and those differences are sort of driven by lenders and which lenders were most active in those states. And in terms of which states had a stay-at-home order in place when, I don't have a solid answer for that, aside from saying that just because there's a stay-at-home order in San Francisco doesn't necessarily mean that businesses in Nevada aren't impacted by that as well, because there's a national stay-at-home order as well. So even if there isn't a forced closure in one state, most businesses nationally are seeing large declines in business that's coming through the door, just because people are voluntarily choosing to stay at home as well, even if a state hasn't come through and formally close down businesses. So, I don't know if the existence of a formal stay-at-home order actually is, sufficient to say, okay, well, the state doesn't have any business anxiety or impacts from coronavirus because they don't have that order.
Okay. We are just about 3 minutes before the end of today's webinar. I want to answer one more question. Does Noah have any? Okay, no. We're already funded for PPP, but did not add sole proprietor draws. Is it possible to change the amount of the loan?
The EIDL or the PPP?
I think the PPP. We already are funded for the PPP,
Okay.
but did not add sole proprietor draws. Is it possible to change the amount of the loan?
No. If any of you are on the call and you have any questions about the loan amount that you received or going to receive for Triple P, you need to figure that out before you actually sign the documents and take the money. If you don't do that, then you're kind of out of luck. You need to make sure everything is properly filled out correctly, documented correctly, stated correctly. And if it's not, then I don't know, it's going to be really hard to go back and say, hey, I messed up. Can I give you this money back and reapply? I think the answer would be no, but I don't know.
Okay. That'll have to be it for our questions for today. We will be back on Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. Hopefully we'll have Noah join us again or somebody else from SBA. Any final words, Scott?
No, just that we're here for you at no cost. We have live people answering this phone call right here, this number, 833-ASK-SBDC. We have a live feed at asksbdc.com, thanks to our marketing director, Aaron Phelps. You can email us here. If you're Espanol, you can email us Espanol here. And if you want to contact SBA directly, you can call this number or email them here. But again, we're here for you at no cost. We're here to help you. We're here to walk through everything with you. We're here to answer all your questions and get you that funding so you can either reopen or sustain yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
I put the link that people can use to download the presentation from today into the chat. And then we had a small technical glitch with the live stream today. So we'll have it available on our YouTube channel, which also you can access via the asksbdc.com, but it might take until kind of the end of the day for that to be there.
Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.